I woke up at 3 in the morning to the sound of something scratching at the porch. It wasn't loud, but it was deliberate, measured. I sat up, holding my breath. The lights were off, and the moon outside was full enough to spill silver across the hardwood floor. I got up slowly, barefoot, and stepped to the window. And there she was, the snow leopard, just like last time. Only this time, she wasn't alone. She stood completely still, her body low, alert. Her eyes locked on mine through the glass, just like they did a week ago. But now, flanking her tiny frame, were 2 cubs. Maybe 3 weeks old, tops. Their spots weren't even fully defined yet. One of them looked like it was limping. The other curled up against her front paw. I didn't move, not even a twitch. My heart was beating somewhere in my throat. I watched as she nudged the limping one forward, and it sat down, wobbling a bit before curling into a ball. She looked back at the treeline for a moment, then at me again. She wasn't here by accident. A week ago, when I found her soaked to the bone, crouched behind the woodpile during a storm, something made me act. I opened the old shed and stepped back. No words, no thoughts. She looked at me like she was deciding if I was going to kill her. Then she slipped inside. I didn't see her again after that night. I just left meat near the door for 2 days. On the 3rd day, it was untouched. I figured she was gone, that maybe she just needed shelter for a few hours. I told myself I did what I could. But now here she was again, and she brought me her cubs. I quietly stepped back from the window and grabbed the old jacket hanging by the door. I didn't even put shoes on. The boards of the porch creaked softly under my feet as I stepped outside. She didn't move. We just stared at each other. The cold air made my breath fog in front of me. One of the cubs lifted its head, blinked at me, then buried its nose into its sibling. She took 1 step back. I didn't speak, just slowly bent down and placed a towel I'd grabbed near the doorway on the porch, then turned to go back inside. I left the door slightly ajar. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen, lights off, a mug of tea going cold in my hands. Minutes passed, then an hour, and then footsteps. Soft, dragging, not paws, claws on wood. I peeked around the corner. She wasn't inside, but the cubs were, curled in the towel, pressed together, asleep. Damp, shivering a bit, but safe. She was gone again. When the sun came up, I stepped outside. The towel was damp, the porch was scratched, and a piece of rabbit fur was near the steps. That day, I didn't go to work. I stayed home, watching from the kitchen window. I texted my boss that I had a leak in the roof. A lie, not proud of it, but I had to know. The cubs stayed where they were. I didn't dare touch them. Around noon, I brought a shallow bowl of water and slid it near them. One sniffed it, but didn't drink. The other didn't even move. By evening, the smaller one looked weaker. I panicked. I found an old plastic syringe from a bottle of cough medicine and used it to drop water gently into its mouth. It didn't resist. Just let me. The bigger one watched me, wary but too tired to run. I thought about calling animal control, but the thought of them taking the cubs, or worse, tracking the mother and killing her, made me sick. So I did nothing. I waited. That night, I left raw chicken out on the porch. And just before midnight, I saw her eyes in the dark, reflecting like 2 coins. She approached, sniffed the meat, and took it. Didn't look at me. I whispered, just once. They're okay. They're inside. She paused. I swear she did. Then disappeared again. By the 4th day, I had a routine. Early morning, check the cubs. Late morning, wipe the porch. Afternoon, fresh water. Night, meat. She came every night. On the 5th day, I heard something else. A knock on the back door. Not a loud one. Hesitant. I opened it and found my neighbor, Rob. Mid-60s. Retired ranger. Used to track mountain lions in Colorado. You all right? He asked. Saw some odd tracks near your woodshed. Figured maybe a raccoon or a bobcat. I nodded. Yeah, probably raccoons. They got into my trash last week. He looked past me, toward the front, then back. Keep an eye out, he said. Something spooked my dog 2 nights ago. Wouldn't stop whining. I said I would. Closed the door slowly. Then I sat on the floor, just behind it, breathing hard. The cubs were still sleeping, and I had no idea what the hell I was doing. But I knew one thing. She trusted me. I found myself staring at the cubs again, crouched on the porch just outside the kitchen door. The bigger one was alert, eyes half open, trying to lift its head. The smaller one just lay there, chest rising in tiny, uneven breaths. They shouldn't have been here. Not in the open like that. The night had dropped cold, If I left them outside, they'd freeze or starve by morning. But if I brought them in, I didn't know what the hell I'd do if their mother saw that. I opened the door and stepped out slowly. The boards creaked, but the cubs didn't flinch. I grabbed the same towel from earlier and knelt beside them. Up close, I could see how bad it was. Their fur was soaked from the ground, matted and sticky in places. The smaller one had dried blood on its leg. I scooped them up one by one. They didn't resist. They didn't even make a sound. Just breathed, shallow and slow. I took them downstairs, into the basement. It was cool down there, but dry and out of sight. I spread 2 clean towels in an old laundry basket and laid them inside. Then I grabbed the space heater I used in winter and pointed it near them on low. For a second, I just sat on the floor across from them, watching. They looked impossibly fragile, like any sound would break them, like this whole moment wasn't real. But it was. I heated up water and found another syringe. Gently, I tilted the smaller cub's head and squeezed in a few drops. Some trickled out, but a bit went down. Then again, slowly, carefully. By the time the sun rose, I'd gotten a few teaspoons into both of them. I covered the basket with another towel to keep them warm and left the basement door cracked. Then I sat on the couch upstairs and stared at the wall. Around noon, I went to the butcher shop, told them I was cooking for a friend who liked exotic food. I asked for raw rabbit and chicken, boneless if possible. The guy didn't ask questions. When I got home, the house felt different. Like it wasn't mine anymore. Like I'd stepped into someone else's secret life. I checked the cubs again. The smaller one had rolled over, legs twitching slightly. The bigger one opened one eye, then closed it. I took a chunk of raw chicken and sliced it into tiny strips, then minced it until it was almost paste. I slid it onto a small saucer and placed it inside the basket. They didn't move. I waited. By evening, the light outside began to fade. I opened the window above the sink and let the night breeze in. Just like the last few nights, I set a tray on the porch, 2 strips of raw meat, and a shallow bowl of water. Then I waited in the dark. I didn't have to wait long. Just before midnight, I heard the soft scrape of claws on wood. I moved silently to the edge of the curtain. She was there. Her eyes caught the moonlight like headlights. Her shoulders moved with slow, controlled strength as she approached the food. She sniffed it, looked around once, then ate. But she didn't look at the house. Not even a glance. I stepped away from the window and crept down to the basement. The cubs were sleeping, barely shifting. And then I heard it. A deep, guttural growl. It wasn't from the basement. It was outside. Close. I raced back upstairs. Through the window, I could see her standing still, head low, body tense. She was staring at the side of the house. A second later, I heard a thump. Something hit the side of the shed. I opened the front door slowly. She didn't move, didn't growl at me, but her eyes were fixed beyond the house. Then I saw it. Another animal. A coyote maybe, slipping through the bushes. She charged. Fast. Silent. All I heard was the crash through the undergrowth, then silence. I stood on the porch, holding the doorknob like it was an anchor. A few minutes passed. Then she came back, not carrying anything. No blood. No injuries. But she looked at me. Really looked at me. Eyes narrowed, chest rising and falling. She stepped forward, almost onto the porch, then stopped. I stepped back, left the door wide open. She didn't enter. She turned and walked away, back into the dark. In the morning, I checked the ground near the shed. There were tracks, hers and something else's. Smaller, definitely canine. No blood, no signs of a fight. Just a warning, I guessed. The cubs were awake when I came down. The bigger one was sitting up now, blinking at the light. The smaller one was curled up against its sibling, breathing steadier. I placed new water near them, fresh towel, and another small plate of minced chicken. This time, the bigger one sniffed it, then took a bite. I didn't move, just watched. It chewed slowly, like it wasn't sure what to do, but it didn't spit it out. The second bite came quicker. I sat there for over an hour, just watching. Then I whispered, "You're gonna be okay." Upstairs, my phone buzzed. I ignored it. The basement was warm, and for the first time since this started, it felt like maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. The next morning started with a knock. I was in the kitchen, pouring hot water over coffee grounds when the sound came. Sharp. 2 knocks. Then nothing. I froze. My eyes shot to the basement door. Still closed. The cubs were quiet. I opened the front door just enough to see. It was Rob. Again. Same flannel jacket, hands in his pockets. "Morning," he said. "Hey." I replied, stepping outside and closing the door behind me, maybe a little too fast. He glanced around. Weird week, huh? He muttered. Yeah, cold nights. Lot of animals moving around. He nodded, then reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small notebook. Flipped it open. Found these yesterday. Behind your woodshed. Tracks. 2 sets. Big cat. Fresh. I kept my face blank. Probably just a cougar passing through, I said. Rob narrowed his eyes slightly. Snow leopard, more likely. Those tracks are wider, toes spread different. And the spacing? Not a cougar. And definitely not just passing through. I stayed quiet. He waited. You haven't seen anything, have you? I shook my head. Not since last winter. Just raccoons lately. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Right. Well, if you do, don't try anything stupid. Animal like that shows up around people. Fish and game gets involved quick. They don't always play nice. He turned and walked back down the gravel path toward his place. I waited until he was out of sight, then went back inside. The cubs were sleeping. The bigger one now had a little more energy. The smaller one, still weak, but stable. That night, she came again. I watched from the shadows of the hallway as she crept up, nose to the ground, scanning. She didn't look at the food tray this time. Instead, she walked to the side of the house. Sat near the basement window. Just sat. She was maybe 10 feet from her cubs, separated by wood and glass and everything she couldn't understand. She stayed for over an hour, then vanished into the trees. This went on for 2 more nights. She never tried to enter, never scratched, never growled, just waited. And I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to open the basement door and let her in, but another part was terrified of what she might do. Then on the 4th day, things changed. A strange truck pulled up just after noon. Black, mud splattered, no plates, no decals. Guy inside wore sunglasses and a camo jacket. He stepped out like he owned the place. You the guy who lives here? He asked. Depends, I said, stepping onto the porch. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Name's Carter, wildlife photographer. Heard there's been sightings of a snow leopard in these parts. Real rare. Once in a lifetime kind of thing. I crossed my arms. This isn't a zoo. He chuckled. No, but animals don't stay hidden forever. Word gets around. You seen anything? I shook my head. Can't help you. He nodded like he expected that. All right. Mind if I fly a drone around? Just a few scans. Harmless. I hesitated. Private property. He raised a brow. Sure. But the woods? That's public. Trailheads start a half-mile down. Then maybe start there. He studied me for a long second, then smiled again. All right. Just thought I'd ask. He turned, got back into his truck, and drove off. But I didn't buy it. Not for a second. I waited until dusk, then took the long trail around my house, scanning the tree line. Didn't see him. Didn't see the truck. But I saw something else. A drone. High up. Silent. Just a faint flicker of red light against the darkening sky. I ran back inside and covered the basement window with a blanket. The cubs stirred a little, but didn't wake. That night, she didn't come. First time in a week. And the meat I left out was untouched. I couldn't sleep. Every noise outside made me jump. Every gust of wind sounded like a motor. Every shadow looked like a man with a camera. At 3 in the morning, I heard a sound I hadn't heard before. Metal. Clicking. I grabbed the flashlight and crept out the back door. In the moonlight, near the shed, something glinted. A trap. Old style. Teeth. Rusted but deadly. And near it, boot prints. I disarmed it with a long stick, cursing under my breath. Then I went back inside and locked every door, every window. I sat in the basement until sunrise. The cubs didn't move much, but they were alive. And now I knew something I didn't before. Someone wasn't just looking to take pictures. They were hunting. And she knew it too. Because at dawn, when the sky was still gray, I saw her again. Standing at the edge of the woods. Not moving. Just watching the house. Like she was waiting for me to do something. Or warning me that someone else already had. I saw it again around 2 in the morning. The red light. Hovering. Not moving. Not blinking. The drone. It was higher this time, quieter than before. Just barely visible above the roofline. Watching. I killed the porch light and ducked back inside. Pulled the curtain shut, turned off everything. My hands were shaking. I sat in the dark, heart pounding. The cubs stirred in the basement below. They hadn't eaten in almost 12 hours. They were waiting too. I waited by the window for another hour. The light disappeared. Or maybe I just couldn't see it anymore. At sunrise, someone knocked. This time it wasn't Rob. I opened the door and saw 3 men. 2 of them had camera gear, long lenses, backpacks. One wore a vest that said Wildlife Press. The third one didn't have a camera, just a brown duffel bag and a look I didn't like. Morning, the one with the vest said, "Sorry to bother you. We're with a documentary group. Heard about the snow leopard sightings. Any chance you've seen her?" I didn't say anything, just leaned against the doorframe. "We won't bother you long," he added. "We're just covering migration behavior. Real peaceful work." Then the man with the duffel spoke. "She was spotted less than a mile from here. We're thinking she's got a den nearby. Might be dangerous. Just making sure locals know." His eyes flicked past me, toward the house. I tightened my grip on the doorframe. "Haven't seen anything. Just squirrels. And a fox last week." They looked at each other. "Mind if we take a few shots from the road?" One asked. "It's a public road," I said. "But this is private property. I'd appreciate it if you stayed off it." They didn't argue, just nodded, forced smiles, turned and walked away. But they weren't gone. I watched from the upstairs window as they parked farther down the trail, out of view. One set up a tripod. The other 2 moved behind the trees. She didn't come that night. The meat was untouched. The water bowl full. Down in the basement, the cubs were restless. The bigger one paced in tiny circles. The smaller one whimpered and nudged the other. I tried feeding them minced rabbit again. Nothing. By midnight, I was pacing too. Something was wrong. The next morning, I waited until the cameras were quiet and the men had stepped away for coffee or batteries or whatever. Then I made a decision. I packed a blanket into my hiking pack, lined a box with towels, and gently lifted the cubs inside. I covered them but left enough room for air. I added a few strips of meat and a bottle of warm water. My heart pounded like a drum the whole time. Then I headed out the back, through the trees, down the old stream path I used to take during winter. They couldn't stay here. Not with drones. Not with traps. Not with men pretending to be journalists. If she was alive, she'd find them. Or I'd at least get them far enough away that they had a chance. I walked for maybe 15 minutes, my boots sliding over wet leaves. The box was light, but I felt every step. I stopped at a low outcrop near a fallen tree. There was a hollow under the roots. Dry, hidden. I laid the box down, opened it. The cubs stirred, blinking slowly. I left the water and meat beside them, along with my flannel shirt. It smelled like the house. Like me. Maybe it would help. Maybe it wouldn't. Then I heard it. A twig snap. Close. I turned. Nothing. I crouched low, heart racing. Then another snap. From the left. Voices. 2 of them. One male, one younger. Too far to make out, but getting closer. They'd followed me. I grabbed the box again and backed out of the hollow. No time. No choices. I ran. Straight uphill. Through branches, thorns, rocks. My legs burned, lungs on fire. I didn't look back. I couldn't. After maybe 5 minutes, I stopped. Hid behind a pine. Listened. Nothing. I laid the box down and opened it. Both cubs were curled up again. Shaking, but okay. I looked around. I knew this part of the forest. There was an old ranger station another quarter-mile east. Abandoned, but solid. Still had a back room. Concrete floor. Steel door. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing. I picked up the box and moved again. When I reached the station, I slipped through the broken fence and into the back room. It smelled like damp wood and dust, but it was dry, quiet. I placed the cubs down and tucked them against the far wall. I whispered, "Stay here, just a little while." Then I left, locked the door with a rusted chain, hid the key under a brick near the edge of the clearing, and I ran home the long way. By the time I got back, the sun was high. The cameras were gone. But Rob's truck was in my driveway. He was waiting on the porch, arms crossed. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me. Then he said it. "They're coming back tonight. You know that, right?" I nodded. My shirt was torn, face scratched, boots muddy. He sighed. "If you're hiding something, now's the time." I looked at him, and for the first time since this began, I told someone the truth. Everything, from the rain, to the shed, to the cubs. Rob didn't say much after that, just stood there, looking out into the woods. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "Then we better make sure she finds them first." The forest was unnaturally still. I moved carefully along the narrow path behind the ranger station, the same one I'd taken days ago. It had rained the night before, and the ground was soft, the moss soaked. My boots left deep imprints as I walked, every step slow and deliberate. The cubs were still tucked away in the station. I checked on them an hour ago, changed the water, left food. The bigger one hissed softly when I reached in, like it was learning to protect itself. The smaller one leaned into the warmth of the blanket I'd wrapped around them. They were holding on. I hadn't seen their mother in 3 nights. Rob and I had done what we could, cleared the traps, spread false tracks, ran noise generators deeper in the woods to throw off any heat signatures. But no sign of her. Not a print. Not a growl. Nothing. And I couldn't wait anymore. I had to find her. That's when I saw it. A smear of blood. Fresh. On a rock near a low bend in the trail. Then another, on the edge of a broken branch. And farther ahead, deep prints. Heavy. Uneven. I moved faster, my chest tight. After maybe 5 minutes, I saw her. She was lying in the brush, half covered by leaves and dirt, breathing hard. Her back leg was twisted at an odd angle, blood matting the fur around her thigh. Her side rose and fell in shallow gasps. She didn't lift her head when I approached. I froze. She was still alive. Barely. I dropped to my knees a few feet away. My voice came out like a whisper. "Hey, it's me." No movement. Just breathing. I reached slowly into my pack and pulled out a towel. Held it up. She turned her head, eyes narrowing, but she didn't growl, didn't bare her teeth. She knew me. I slid closer, inch by inch, until I could see her face clearly. One eye swollen, whiskers caked in mud. Then, I did something I hadn't done before. I reached out and touched her, fingers on her shoulder, gently. She flinched, but didn't pull away. My throat tightened. "It's okay," I whispered. "I've got you." I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was no vet, no expert, just a guy who couldn't walk away. I wrapped the towel around her leg, trying to slow the bleeding. She groaned low in her throat. Her eyes never left mine. She tried to stand, collapsed. So I did the only thing I could. I grabbed 2 fallen branches, tied them with my belt and hoodie sleeves, and fashioned a kind of sled. Then I rolled her onto it. She growled then. Soft, but not at me. Just the pain. It took everything I had to drag her. Through mud, over roots, slipping twice, cutting my hand open on a thorn. But I didn't stop. It took over an hour, but I got her to the station. The cubs woke as I entered. The bigger one hissed again. The smaller one whimpered. And then she lifted her head. A soft, broken sound left her throat. Not a roar. Not even a growl. Just a vibration. They moved toward her. Slowly. Cautiously. I watched as the cubs pressed their heads to her side. She licked them once each, weak and trembling. I backed away. That night, I slept in the ranger tower. Not well, but I slept. When I came down in the morning, the station was quiet. She was still alive, breathing steadier. The cubs were curled against her. I brought more water, more meat, a flashlight, and sat on the floor with them. We stayed like that all day. She never tried to leave, just rested. By the 3rd day, she could stand, limping, but moving. By the 5th, she was walking around the room, checking the corners. And then, just like that, she was gone. I came down early that morning, and the station was empty. No blood, no signs of struggle, just paw prints leading into the trees. 3 sets. I stood there for a long time, not moving. And then I smiled. They made it. A week passed. Then 2. I tried not to hope, not to wait. But every night, I left something on the porch, just in case. And then, one morning, it was there. A bone. Clean. Heavy. Fresh. Laid right at my front door. I knew what it was. A piece of a musk deer. Rare. Not something left by accident. 3 sets of tracks in the mud. 1 large. 2 smaller. I never saw them again. Not with my eyes. But every few nights, something showed up. A feather. A stripped rabbit tail. Once, a smooth stone. Small things. Wild things. But never random. They were alive. And I think, in their own way, they were saying thank you. I've told this story twice. Once to Rob. Once to myself. Most people wouldn't believe it. Hell, some days I don't either. But then I look at my porch. At the bone still sitting on the windowsill. At the prints I've stopped washing away. We never really understand why animals do what they do. They don't write books. They don't leave notes. But they remember. And sometimes, in the quietest ways, they let you know that you did the right thing. Even if it almost broke you. Even if no one ever knows but you. Kindness doesn't always echo loud. Sometimes it just leaves a mark. Right where you'll always see it.